So good evening and welcome to the Royal Aeronautical Society's Cierva named lecture. Wish you all a warm welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's great to see a good turnout. My name's Robin Taylor-Hunt. I'm the current chair of the Royal Aeronautical Society's Rotorcraft specialist group and also Director of Customer Support at Safran Helicopter Engines in the UK. So it's with quite a lot of interest that we've managed to get Cyril here tonight to talk about the NGRC programme. So Cyril Hackel is the NGRC Programme Manager with the NATO Support and Procurement Agency, and Cyril's currently leading the Concept Stage at NSPA, and we're going to hear about that tonight. So he's been working with international defence procurement, defence programme environment for the last 20 years, operating 7 years at OCCAR and the last 7 years at NSPA. He concluded his 23-year naval officer career in 2018, where he served on several operational units between 1997 and 2002, before directing his career towards naval programme management. He graduated from the Naval Academy in 1998, from Superlek Engineering School in 2004, and from the Kellogg WHU Executive MBA programme in 2018. He has extensive experience in leading high-level performance teams for defence armament programmes, and he strongly supports dedication to customer satisfaction. Excellent.
Right.
Welcome. Thank you, Cyril.
Thank you.
As it is a Remembrance Day today, I wanted to start with first a reference to the First World War. So when the First World War broke out in 1914, Winston Churchill was one of the most important men in Britain. As the First Lord of Admiralty, he was the head of the Royal Navy. But in 1915, everything collapsed. I mean, due to the campaign of Gallipoli, or the Dardanelles campaign, it was a terrible result, devastating result for him. Many thousands of soldiers died in this campaign, and indeed the Entente powers were defeated by the Ottoman Empire. After this event, Churchill was blamed, he was humiliated, and he was forced to resign. And after he resigned, in this time, and even today, we could say that many politicians, they would just vanished and disappeared from the scene. But Churchill decided to stay involved. So if he was not involved into the government, he decided to be involved as a soldier. So he came back in the British Army and he went to the front, so in Belgium, into the trenches, to be on the battlefield. And there, in the mud, in the cold, under the noise of the shells, he was a leader. So he led his team and his men with courage and bravery. And at that time, he learned a lot. He learned a lot about one thing, which is resilience. So when I refer to this quote, which happened many years after the First World War, and which refers to optimism, I like this quote because indeed we see that indeed the optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty. So he learned through his experience from First World War, and it was his own experience, his life experience, that brought this to this conclusion. And in the next war, when he became the prime minister, he was that prime minister who was able to educate and teach his citizens by saying them to never give in. And I like to consider this optimism also in multinational activities, multinational cooperation, defense armament projects. Why? Because it's not a naive optimism. It's an optimism which accepts reality and which considers that we can make some progress through effort and cooperation. So, as kindly introduced by Ruben, indeed, my name is Cyril Hackel. I have been working the last 7 years at NSPA, the NATO Support Procurement Agency, and the last 3 years as a next generation Rotorcraft capability, so NGRC program as program manager. At NSPA, we are working for the Alliance, for NATO, and we are working into a multinational environment. It is challenging, multinational cooperation is challenging for many reasons, and I will come back to this a couple of times in my presentation to highlight that, yes, we need to harmonize requirements between nations, between several customers, and we have operational requirements, technical requirements, And on top of that, for sure, we have a political and industrial influence that impact most of our decisions. Just shortly, what is the agenda of my presentation? I'm sorry for that, but I will have one slide about the NSPA for the propaganda for my agency. So I will just try to illustrate what the NSPA is doing and how we evolved over the last 10 years, because indeed there is a big change. And then I will move to NGRC. So I will just remind which is the scene of NGRC before entering with more details about the NGRC Concept Studies that we are finalizing. I mean, we had the final presentations with our industries 1 month ago, but we have still a couple of activities to be finalized before the end of the year. And finally, I will just explain to you what is next for NGRC. As I said already 2 times, NGRC stands for next generation. So it is the next generation that we are preparing today, and I just want to explain to you what we have in mind for next generation. So as I said, and it will be only one slide about NSPA, but it's quite important. You see that here I just wanted to illustrate with 4 different pictures of helicopters from the early phase, so from the concept stage up to disposal. I wanted to illustrate that NSPA is able to manage and monitor defense armament projects through the entire life cycle. And it's new because I think we are the unique agency being able to tackle these activities through the entire life cycle. Before that, maybe you heard the name, we were called NAMSA. It was more maintenance and support activities, focusing on the in-service support activities, so maintenance and also procure some spare parts. So you can see that here, the acquisition directorate to the top left is a new directorate that we created in 2024. And this directorate was created in order to manage, as I said, the early stage activities, so concept, development, and production for defense armament system. It's a new directorate. Currently, we have only 4 programs into this directorate. NGRC is one of them. We have also the AFSC, Alliance Future Surveillance Control, and the initial AFSC, as well as the modular GBAD, so modular ground air-based defense. So we have only 4 programs. It's a new directorate. And it is a very high challenge also for the agency to demonstrate that indeed we can manage these challenging acquisition activities for the Alliance. We have 2 other directorates. One is about the Lifecycle Management Directorate. So it's a bit oriented towards what I said before. It's managing more the in-service support activities and dealing with maintenance and service contracts. When operational directorate is more oriented to the support of the battlefield. So for nations who are implementing some missions, we are providing some support to them. So this is a high-level picture of NSPA. And just to remind what is our vision regarding the acquisition activities, it's to be the first choice for acquisition of multinational systems to deliver innovative and sustainable capabilities for the Alliance and nations. So again, it's a new directorate, the acquisition. There are new activities, we have new programs, and the willingness of NSPA, but also of NATO, is to further develop this capability in the agency. Now, moving to NGRC. So, NGRC, and it is illustrated with different pictures on this slide, it was really an initiative from 7 nations at the beginning to replace some medium rotorcraft for many of them, because they had their systems with an end life around 2035, 2040. And these nations, they wanted to define what could be the next generation to replace the systems. And this is so when I said before, the next generation, there was this idea, and I will say also this later, when we discussed about open system architecture, digital engineering, the idea was, okay, we want something next gen, which is not next gen today, but that will remain next gen the time we deliver it and the time they enter into service. So this is one of the challenges we have in the program office, to ensure that the innovations we are targeting will remain innovations also in the future. The nations, they also wanted to tackle the operational aspects. So that means we know that the operational environment is evolving. We are learning a lot from the war in Ukraine. And nations wanted to establish a concept of operation answering the current but also the future threats. And the last one was about the role of rotary wing aviation needs to adapt. So this adaptation, I have one slide, short slide about it to say how the rotary wings will evolve, especially with uncrewed systems. This is a challenge, and to see which are the missions we want to keep for helicopters and which are the ones we want to give to uncrewed systems. About, so I'm coming from the Navy, so you know in the Navy it's always about ships. So we like to speak about friendship, relationship, and partnership. So which is the partnership for NGRC? You see here an illustration of the current 7 nations which are involved in NGRC. I'm sure that most of you are probably aware of that. We have one partner, so Greece. They will leave the initiative by the end of 2025, at the end of the concept studies. And is it, okay, it's always, I mean, we are always disappointed when we are losing one of the partners, but we are all aware that for these initiatives, when you start at concept stage, there will be always some changes. So that means we started at 7, and I like to say that the day we are going to sign, I hope we are going to sign one day a development and production contract. I'm not sure that we will have the 6 remaining nations involved. Maybe we have more, maybe we have less, maybe we have the same number with different nations. We don't know yet. There are plenty of aspects that will influence the final shape of the partnership for NGRC. But you see here the picture of which nations are involved into the partnership. And currently we have a Memorandum of Understanding that is running until the end of 2029. So we had the first one, it was running until end of 2025. And last year, the 6 nations extended their activities until end of 2029 to go for the concept design activities. So here, the same, shortly to introduce which are the NGRC challenges. I could only speak about the one I mentioned before, about the next generation aspect we want to have. But, and again, I could also emphasize again on the challenge of multinational cooperation, which is all about harmonization of requirements between the different nations, and also for a nation between the different forces, sometimes between the army, the Air Force, and even the Navy for the requirements. So indeed, the first one is to identify the capability need for the nation. Again, there is a word about innovation, and to see which are the innovations that will add value, operationally speaking, and which are the ones that are not needed for NGRC. The same for innovations. We have, I mean, we all, especially with the forces, when you mention innovation, they expect this innovation to be reflected in the final system and operationally speaking. But in the world of acquisition, innovation can also consider the industrial processes, as well as for us, NSPA, the programmatic aspects. So innovations can reflect in several activities. There was also, yes, we wanted from day one to push our industry partners to be proactive in this innovation research. So I would say that in the past, if you see and check the biggest multinational programs, they were always done in a step-by-step construct with some preferred industry with the national champions from participants. For NGRC, we started in a competitive environment to foster industry to deliver the best and to give more chance, more options for nations for their decision making. Another challenge was about trade-off, and I will come back to this later when I present the studies that we perform with industry. But indeed, the idea was through the concept studies, we wanted to give a chance to nations and to industry to present which are the possible trade-offs we can perform to answer at best the initial requirements or the so-called attributes for NGRC. Again, a buzzword that I used before about digital transformation. We are still exploring this, so we started with some ideas about digital engineering, and for us, it's all about what is the application of digital technologies, the data-driven models that we could use, and also the simulation tools that we can use to support, through the concept design and production, the decision-making. And from this phase, and then to keep this strategy through the entire life cycle of the NGRC. certification is another challenge that we want to tackle. What we learned also from through Study 5 is that certification may be the main challenge regarding the timeline for NGRC. We know that certification process is a huge and challenging administrative process for airworthiness, and we want to tackle it the soonest so we can ensure that we can deliver on time. And the last one about efficiency and adaptability through life. It was also a topic that we addressed from the beginning. Again, my past, as Robin mentioned, I have been working in acquisition for the last 20 years, and sometimes we tend to focus more on the operational and technical requirements, and we may forget about what we call integrated logistics support. And integrated logistics support is something that helps you to see how you may influence your design by considering the through life aspect. So how I'm going to maintain my system, how I can ensure an effective maintainability of the system, and also how I can optimize the cost through the entire life cycle. So these are aspects that we also wanted to tackle from day one for NGRC and into the concept studies. Now, very briefly, so because I'm not able to answer the details for this, who is going to select exactly what should be crewed or uncrewed? We just agree between all stakeholders for NGRC that there is still space for crewed system, and for a long time. So we expect NGRC to be able to operate with uncrewed system for the benefit of some operational missions, but today to operate in attrition, to operate with some specific weather conditions, we still need the human to have a crew in these systems. The same for the man-unmanned teaming. We also need the man to trust the machine, and also have some engineers saying that we need to have the machine to trust the man in the future. So we are still exploring this. This is something that we explored through the Study 5, again, that I will present later. But the great conclusion of this was that indeed there is more than space for the crewed system in the next decades. Another thing, before going to the studies, just a reminder that I mentioned this before, that we developed with nations a concept of operation. The idea was for the concept, and I advise the nation to do so. That means from day one, we see that we are targeting 11 missions for NGRC. So it's really ambitious because we are going from air assault to some maritime missions. So it's challenging. It's a very wide scope of operational missions. And you see on the top right just an illustration of what we could find in the request for proposal, in the contractual documents with industry, to explain further what we have as information in the CONOPS. Just to say that I think it was really useful in the end to keep this wide scope of missions, because when we went through Study 5, it gave the opportunity to our colleagues from industry to explore indeed where some possible designs had more interest or had more impact, operationally speaking, and we could also identify, in some cases, some weaknesses. So this was the NGRC CONOPS that we use for the concept studies. And the same, for the NGRC concept studies, we used what we call NGRC attributes. So they were not requirements yet, they were attributes or candidates for future requirements. Again, you can see that we use 3 different categories, and moving from the current generation to the next generation. So we had some core platform enablers, some mission and operational, and again, integrated logistics support. In the mission enablers, for sure, we had all the ones related to modularity, again, open system architecture, and for operations, we had the ones related to the ones we have related to the CONOPS and to the concept of operation, with the capacity for troop transport, with the targeted speed for the system. And finally, for the last category, integrated logistics support, it was related to the operational availability of the fleet, as well as some cost target for the system. So with the flyaway cost and also the cost per flight hour. We see again that through Study 5, the objective was to test these attributes, because now we will enter in the phase of writing the initial requirements for NGRC. So this idea was really, yes, to test ambitious attributes from the nations and to see what we can do with them. That's NGRC Concept Studies. So as I mentioned from my journalist colleagues before, I will present now a timeline. In the timeline, so some people who attended my conference maybe 3 years ago, they would say, it's the same timeline. And I'm pretty happy and proud with my team to say, indeed, it is the same timeline because it was a prevision, and today this is what we did. That means we were not late in the concept studies. So we delivered in time to our nations, which is a success. So you could see that we implemented mainly 5 different studies for the NGRC concept studies. We have 3 in blue, 2 in green. The 3 blue studies were awarded after a competition. The principle that we applied for this competition was what we call a best value competition. So that means there was a different weight between the performance and the cost. So the performance was given a weight of 80%. Just to highlight again the willingness of nations, that they wanted to give priority of the content of the studies. The cost was definitely not a priority. They wanted to learn more from these studies. And the 2 green studies were studies that, for study 2, was performed by governmental entities, and study 4, which was about novel technologies, it was a study which was performed by the Science and Technology Office from NATO. To enter a bit the details of these studies, so the first study was a very short study, 6 months and 1 million effort. And it was awarded to GE Aerospace. And it was to get an agnostic view on which are the engine solutions, the current one, future ones, that may answer the need for NGRC. Some people would argue that these studies were already performed in the past, but I would say yes, many nations, they perform their own studies. We are the same, I would say, with their national champions sometimes. The difference here is that, again, it was awarded after a competitive process, so we could award to the best bid, and it was established against a contract or against a set of requirements that we established with our nations. So typically in this study, we run more than 60 simulations, different modeling activities, in order to compare which are the possible results. As a short summary of the result, we learned that indeed the best solution for today is probably the next-gen gas turbine from 2025. With also, we need to keep a look at the next-gen 2035 gas turbine by considering what could be also the effort needed for the development. For the other solutions, electrical or hydrogen, it's too early today to have certainty that these solutions will be a good fit for NGRC, especially the hydrogen. We are not ready for that yet. NGRC Concept Study 3. It was kind of the same principle. It was to have an agnostic view on open system architecture. As I said, when we started this initiative, we had a rough idea of what was open system architecture and what could be the benefits of open system architecture for NGRC. So through this study, it was awarded to colleagues from Lockheed Martin. It was a 10-month effort for €2 million. And we learned a lot. I mean, we learned a lot from this study. I think it was a game changer also to help us for the following study of Study 5. It was also a good insight for the contractors of Study 5 because we could come to the table with them to explain a bit what we expected for this part. And so what we learned is that, especially we learned what was open system architecture, what could be the benefit of open system architecture, and I just wanted to illustrate that indeed we had a demonstration with Lockheed Martin in the US showing how easily you could implement some modifications, changes over the screens for the pilot. So illustrating that the same, when in the future, through the life cycle, you have some new equipment to be integrated in the system, it would be much easier to integrate these new equipment, and that the change on the operating environment for the pilots would be would not be impacted by the new equipment installed on board. The other aspect that was really beneficial for us is that we learned these quality attributes that are necessary to define the open system architecture and the digital environment for NGRC. So I think this was a key study that was really helpful for the program office and nations. NGRC Study 5 was a core part of the concept studies. Indeed, the idea, I see the pictures. For you, it's okay to make a picture of this one. I will just display some videos after that. There were some deliverables from the contractors. I kindly ask if you can not make any picture of the videos, and after that, I will ensure that we can share with you. Okay. So, Concept Study 5 was a core part of the NGRC concept studies. And for this part, the idea was that we had 6 bidders for this competition, and we awarded a contract to the 3 best bidders. So we had Airbus, Leonardo, and Sikorsky. And the idea was that each of these contractors could answer with up to 2 concept solutions for NGRC. So when I say concept solutions, that means we had, as I said before, we had the CONOPS with a set of 11 missions. We had our attributes, or kind of candidate requirements. And we asked, yes, industry, can you explore which is, according to your knowledge, according to what you're going to explore, which is a possible concept answering these attributes and these CONOPS. And in addition to that, we also want to have a first insight about what will be the cost, so a rough order of magnitude for the cost for development, production, and even for in-service support, even if they are only ROM cost. We also would like to know generic information about the certification process, and in the end, what could be a possible delivery date and entry into service for this concept solution. So the idea was really to explore and to provide us with some data, some elements, some facts, so nation could further explore the writing of the future NGRC requirements. So you can see on these pictures, these are the 5 concepts that were presented by the 3 contractors. And I'm just going to show, so in the frame of the contract, we ask each of them to deliver a promotional video of their concept. So that's what I'm going to present to you now. So it's by alphabetical order, so it will be first Airbus. To introduce these videos, I will just mention a couple of points, but they apply to the 3 contractors. It's not applying to one single contractor. The first one is to highlight that what we learned also through Study 5 is that for sure we were challenged by the Rotorcraft triangle between the speed, the payload, and the range. It was a challenge for the contractors. It's also a challenge for us with the nations, because for sure when you give more emphasis on one of these aspects, you have tendency to damage a bit the 2 other ones. So this is one of the challenges faced by industry. It is a challenge we face, and we are going to face even a bit more to see what is the correct balance to optimize this triangle. So now just start with the first video from Airbus. So I won't comment in detail these videos, but you can see that indeed Airbus focused on two possible concepts at this stage. For the next one, which is the video from Leonardo, I just want to emphasize again on the certification challenge. As I said, we already anticipate that it could be one of the major challenges regarding the timeline challenges or the timeline targets that we have with nations. I just remind that we are targeting 2035, 2040, and in the objective maybe we are a bit closer to 2035 than 2040, and we anticipate that certification will be a challenge. So this is also what we ask the contractors to see how we can work to ensure a faster certification. And we have, ambitious hopes that thanks to digital twinning, again, digital engineering, the goals we have, that it will help for this certification. So I start the second video from Leonardo.
The world is changing. So are the threats we face. Speed, range, and adaptability are no longer luxuries. They are mission critical. NGRC is the next generation of vertical lift, a tilt rotor concept designed to meet the complex challenges of modern warfare to respond to NATO demands. The versatility of a helicopter, the performance of an airplane. 9 industry partners from NATO nations bringing together advanced knowledge of production methods, operational concepts, and technology in the world to create a concept that will empower operators. Built around an open systems architecture, it evolves with the mission, adapts to emerging threats, and integrates rapidly with allied systems. From advanced ISR payloads to mission-specific configurations, the system is designed to scale, connect, and respond in real time. A concept that integrates cutting-edge synthetics and training methods to deliver what is needed to make the best next-generation rotorcraft. By combining the performance of fixed and rotary wing, the next-generation tilt rotor can both survive and thrive in the future battle space by providing unmatched speed, range, and tactical flexibility. NGRC will go further, act faster, work smarter, and enable commanders to project force at speed from range, presenting the enemy with multiple dilemmas during offensive operations and allowing rapid readjustments of forces during defensive operations. From disaster relief to joint NATO operations across multiple domains. One platform, multiple missions. Enhanced survivability in contested environments is embedded by design. The aircraft anticipates danger before it strikes, delivering 4 tons of payload with a maximum takeoff weight of 17 tons. Rapid troop deployment of up to 16 warfighters to medevac and special operations. Agility, resilience, dominance, when every second counts. We go beyond the limits of possibility because the future of defense doesn't wait. The future is almost here. NGRC, next generation rotorcraft capability.
So maybe I also like to emphasize that just to remind that we were at the concept stage, so these are concept solutions, they are not solutions for NGRC. It's important to remind that indeed all these concepts, none of them is answering positively, let's say, all the attributes we have because they were all ambitious, but the idea was really to explore concepts. So you could see that on this concept solution, Leonardo focused on the tilt rotor concept solution. And to move now to Sikorsky, and the last one, you will see that also developed 2 possible concepts for NGRC. Yes, and I start the presentation. So you could have a look on these three presentations from the subcontractors. You can see that in all of them we see, so there are possible concept solutions for sure, but they are all tackling in a way this multi-domain interaction, open system architecture, and some of the aspects of the triangles that I mentioned before, again, speed, payload, and range. Just to go back to the studies that we performed, so I would just come back quickly on the two green studies, especially Concept Study 2, so which is a study performed by governmental entities, and one which is based in UK, so DSTL, and also the other one from DGA, the French Procurement Agency. So we call this study operational analysis. So as I said, from the three contractors, we receive some concept solution with some further detailed analysis on how they can meet or not these attributes. And the idea through the operational analysis was to have an independent view from these governmental entities with another angle on the results we received. Again, the idea you will see, I'm going to present what's going to happen next. We are going to write now the NGRC requirements, and DSTL and so the agency called Cathode in DGA, they will help us to solidify some of the technical and operational knowledge before writing the requirements. So what is next? As I said, we are finalizing the concept studies, so we are closing now the activities, and it will be officially closed by the end, by early December, if I'm not wrong. So let's say before the end of 2025. And after that, we will need to go to the refinement and prioritization of these attributes. And we'll then need to transform them into requirements. We need to see how we potentially amend some of the aspects of our concept of operation and how we go deeper in the descriptions of related missions. We need to refine our digital strategy for the program with the nations. We need now to focus also on the certification strategy, and we had a meeting last week with our nations, and indeed we want to dedicate a specific effort, a specific task force with the nations to further reinforce this certification strategy. And in parallel, we are also considering, as I said from the beginning, the ILS aspect, so we are already considering which is our support strategy for NGRC, keeping a vision for the very long term. So indeed, the next step for us is to define our initial set of requirements. So maybe you read about it, maybe you heard about it, but we already started the next phase. We started the 31st of October, the concept design activities. So it started with the release of what we call the pre-qualification assessment. And it will start the concept design activities that will run until the end of 2027. After the end of 2027, the idea is that nations, they have time to proceed for potentially further national analysis or refinement of their political and industrial strategy for this, but they would have time to assess the result from the competitions that we are going to run now and to make that decision. So this is the time frame, 28-29, noting that I would like to shorten this time frame, but this is a time frame where indeed we may have some nations leaving, we may have new partners joining the initiative for the next phase that will happen a bit later for the development and production activities. The development activities starting with some de-risking activities. Yes, so this is the detailed planning. The same. I just wanted to illustrate the detailed planning because, as I mentioned, we already started officially the concept design activities. And you see this is this very small row there. So this is this PQA, pre-qualification assessment. So it started end of October, and it will last until the end of December. And the idea is already to kind of filter the market. So we want to ensure that when we start the activities in 2026, we have solid consortia and solid teams who are able to answer the nations. And we don't want to be diverted with, let's say, some groups who will not have the knowledge, because managing these big contracts can be really, difficult for the program office that we have and also for the nations. So we are going through this pre-qualification assessment. And the next phase, you see that it's starting mid of 2026. So with the nations, we are targeting that our requirements, initial requirements for NGRC, shall be ready by summer 2026. So then we start a competitive process until mid of 2027. Let's say September 2027. It will be a competition. Again, we will apply the best value principles, giving more emphasis on the performance aspect again. And the idea is that we are going for, so as I said, you remember that I said that we have a new acquisition directorate in the agency, and we will develop a new procurement process which is based on what we call acquisition by qualified options. That means we will define a qualification threshold based on, again, technical and operational performance and cost performance. And if we have more than one qualified bidder, nations will have the opportunity to select their preferred option between the qualified bids. That means the threshold for qualification will remain ambitious because for us we want to foster the market to deliver the best for our nations, but we may have several qualified bids in the end. That means by the end of 2027, when NSPA performs the evaluation and provide nations with some evaluation results, we will also recommend what is, according to us, the preferred solution for the nation, but they will have a chance, again, to select between the qualified bids. Then, as I said, 2028, we would have some contracts on the table for de-risking activities, and the idea we will wait for, in the program office and NSPA, nations to trigger this award of de-risking activities. To conclude my presentation, I just wanted to go back on these challenges for multinational cooperation. So you see that on this slide, I just represent the usual iron triangle for program management. So when we deliver to our nations, we assess against performance. So how we are going to deliver the technical and operational requirements, how we are going to answer the CONOPS. We have the other aspect, dimension, which is about the cost. So are we able to maximize the cost benefit for nations? We have also another aspect. Are we able to keep the work under the ceilings defined for the different budgets? And the timeline. So the time is also a challenge. You can see that for the concept studies, we delivered against the schedule, so it's a major success. But for the next phases, indeed with an entry in service targeted between 2035 and 2040, there is still a big challenge there for us, which requires that we sequence proactively the next phases, and that we trigger them early so we can deliver in time. There is another triangle that we used at NSPA, which is our slogan at NSPA. We use responsive, efficient, and effective. So this puts also sometimes some kind of pressure to my team, to the program office, as indeed we are also assessed against this. And I would say that on top of all of these, we have also this political challenge that we need to address with our nations. Each nation has some individual expectations, and this is our role as procurement agency to harmonize these requirements and to do our best to run this harmonization. And I can tell you it's never easy because, as you can imagine, when you have 6 players, they all come with their national expectations. Sometimes the goal is common, but they have a different way to express. And to finalize, I just wanted to use a British sketch that I could watch a couple of weeks ago. It was, I think it was a sketch from 2023, and it was at the time on the BBC, and there was this actor, the British actor, Papa Essadieu. He was playing the role of Hamlet, and he was on the stage saying, "To be or not to be, that is the question." And successively, you have several famous British actors entering the stage and trying to give him some advices about how to say it properly. So the first one said, "To be or not to be, that is the question." The second one came and said, "To be or not to be, that is the question." Fourth one said, "To be or not to be, that is the question." And they successively said a different tone for the sentence. The last one was Sir Ian McCallum saying, "To be or not to be, that is the question." And the punchline of this is to say we have these nations saying the same thing in a different tone, so sometimes with different expectation. And in the show, So this is where maybe my comparison is a bit intrepid, because in the end it was the Prince of Wales entering the scene. So I would say NSPA is in this kind of role, and he was able to end in an agreement the show by saying, to be or not to be, that is a question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cyril. I'm sure we have questions. Would you please, we have someone with a mic at the back, so please wait for the mic.
Thank you. Rick Parker. Very nice talk, and I particularly like the videos, very interesting. I still don't fully understand the role of NSPA. So you're going to stimulate the creation of a new helicopter, you're going to down select to a single helicopter, and you can offer that. But at the end of the day, the companies that don't win are free to develop their own helicopter. All the countries of NATO are sovereign countries. They don't have to buy the NATO specified helicopter. So how does NSPA add value in that? I can see stimulating the concept study is great. That's a great study, but how does it add value in the downstream procurement process?
All what you say is true. I mean, we are just a contracting authority. So we are a procurement agency or an acquisition agency, and the benefits we had is more on what I said in the end. It's more on this harmonization. So first we work with a mandate from our nations. That means they come to us. They have a MOU between them, and between nation and us, we have what we call a support partnership. And this is a mandate given to NSPA to explain which are our objectives for the initiative. It creates a forum for nations to discuss all together. And I said, I've been working the last 20 years in a multinational acquisition. The challenge is always the same, to harmonize requirements between nations. And having us as a contracting authority, so I have members from my team here. We have some expertise in-house in the team, also to advise nations, to provide this expertise and to explain why maybe an harmonization is better than another one. And yes, I think the added value of NSPA is for this. Now, as you ask, yes, theoretically and even practically, I mean, we run a competition. We identify always by default who is the best, and our advice is always we always recommend to go with the best solution for sure. Now, if tomorrow nations they want to go with I don't like to say a loser, but a non-winning bid, they can do it, but not through NSPA. The by default rules of NSPA and NATO is competition. I know that we had in the past, and we still have some single source cases or even sole source cases, but today the by default rule is competition. The same, we strongly believe, I don't want to say any names from past programs, but if you hear from our nations, and even currently our customer nations from NGRC, they have complaints about sustainability, increase of cost through the lifetime of the systems. I strongly believe that thanks to competition, you are able to improve this. And I can tell you, and maybe we should ask, I mean, I know that we have colleagues from industry here, but compared to some programs where we had no competition, we could see that in these concept studies, what we obtained was really great. It was better than working with one single industry with no competitive environment.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yes.
Cyril, lovely to see you again. Wayne Keeble, GE Aerospace. I wonder if you could comment, please. I'm not happy with that, don't worry, as long as everybody can hear recording me. Well, I'll stop that question then. Now, what I was going to ask, Cyril, is do you think that the consortia, and you know that I've been involved in this as we've been going through the process, do you think they're keeping pace with the rapidly changing concept and environment that's being driven by what we're seeing in Ukraine, so that the practical application of those lessons learned are being turned into what you're seeing from the consortia? And a second one, cheekily if I may, digital certification. How much of a reality is digital certification? Because the timeline you require there is going to need it. Sorry, that's 2.
Second one, I have definitely no answer to that, but I hope that we get some answers for the next phase, and that we get also more certainty, because we know it will be a huge challenge. And as I said, with our nations, we decided recently that we want to establish a dedicated working group to work on the requirements we target for the next phase. And yes, I can just say that I have personally huge expectations for this field, that we can improve. Again, I could say to you that for the last 20 years, I heard from you and all your colleagues from industry, we are going to do better, faster, cheaper. So I'm just saying, industry, okay, deal, do it. And I would be really, proud of the entire NGRC community that we can say, okay, for NGRC, indeed, certification is not an issue at all. Just focus on the engineering challenges. It will be easy and we will be in time. So this is my, I know it's not maybe the answer you expect. And for the first one, the same, I don't have a perfect answer to this. I just can tell you that the same, in the different working groups that we are implementing for NGRC, we have a specific one related to the CONOPS and the operational mission. The same, we have a digital strategy, which is we want to implement these simulation tools in order to support our evaluation of future bids. In this, wargaming simulation, so I have some experts, some geeks who are better experts than I am for this, but in the writing of the requirements, for sure we involve the forces. That means from each nation we have the operational experts. That means pilots, crews, from the Navy, from the Army, and the idea is we want to collect their feedback, whichever it comes from Ukraine, from Mali, from France, or from other partners. But the idea is that indeed we want to be up to date with these lessons learned to reflect at best in the CONOPS and the operational missions what we want for the future. So that's why I always say that it will be a bit more challenging for the next phase, because for the concept stage, if you change one requirement from one day to another, it's a bit more flexible. For the next phase, we need to be careful. We are going to write the initial set of requirements. So for sure, until the PDR or CDR, and when I say that, I can tell you that I would like also maybe to change these terminologies. I hope that the digital engineering environment will allow to have something new, which allows us to go faster. Maybe we don't need a PDR, we can go directly to a CDR to challenge industry. But yes, we are involving the operational people in order to reflect at best what is needed, and it considers the lessons learned and the feedback from the current operations.
Yes, what is the situation regarding to the increase in use now of unmanned drones? Is there any focus on spending time and money on doing that now?
So as I said, we strongly believe that there will be still crewed system for following decades. So we are not worried about Rotorcraft system disappearing with a crew on board. Now as I said, I did not enter this into detail here, but we are also strongly believing in the teaming between crewed and uncrewed system. So again, I could refer to our set of missions in the CONOPS, but the idea is to make this the most relevant possible against the operational usage that our nations wants to have.
So I'm going to ask a question, if I may. I noted that on study 1, there was GE was selected, and I think it was study 3, Lockheed Martin, and it made me think that, noting that the US is not a participant in the program, is there any intention to align procurement from participating nations or not?
So thank you for the tough question. No, when we started in 2022, from the first days of NGRC, we knew that some knowledge was out there on the other side of the Atlantic, and the idea was, again, as I said, in the best value competition, we had a weight of 80% for the performance. So it gave some indications about what was the willingness of nations. They wanted to gain more knowledge about what could be feasible for NGRC. So it was at that time quite obvious to say, if you want to get knowledge, you need to keep the best candidates in the room for a competition. So we decided to keep an open competition with colleagues from industry from the US. So indeed, they were awarded study 1 and study 3, and Sikorsky was awarded one of the study 5. Now for the next phase, indeed, it might be slightly different. That means there will be some work share considerations for sure. We don't know yet exactly which ones, because it's too early to say that. Again, I have to remind that we don't know yet which will be the final group of nations for NGRC. We don't have fixed and tangible quantities yet to be produced, so we don't have this data yet. The only thing is that at least NSPA, we are recommending that we keep open the participation, a minimum participation of colleagues from US industry for the next phase. So in the PQAs that we released to industry, it is clearly said that we probably expect to have a prime contractor from the participating nation, but then the contribution as suppliers, even an OEM, could be from the US. So it remains open.
Yeah. Great. Thank you very much. We've reached the end of our time, and I'd just like to thank you very much, Cyril, for a very interesting talk and very good responses to the questions as well. So please, a big hand of
Thank you.
And now I remind you that there is a drinks reception sponsored very kindly by Leonardo, which takes place just out here in the Marshall of Cambridge room. Thank you very much for coming. Good to see you all here tonight. Very good.
Thanks.